4 hours away from the beginning of the 2024 NFL draft. All NFL franchises hunkering down, getting those boards finalized, except for whatever's going on in Cincinnati. LOL, Bengals. How does it feel? Yeah, you like a lot of jokes. However, we have your final Cleveland Browns mock draft to get to. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd just keeps getting higher and higher. As far as subscribers, don't miss out. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Of course, the show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it. I have a competitive side, and I am a big fan of Monopoly Go. The mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. Like I said, 24 hours away. Finalizations are being done. Browns getting ready for the action tomorrow night, which most likely Cleveland will be spectators tomorrow evening. And then ready to go Friday, and hopefully bringing in some absolutely fantastic young talent here to the Cleveland Browns. We're going to do 3 picks here in segment 1. We're going to do 3 picks in segment 2. Some thoughts here in segment 3 as we close it out. But to get the ball rolling. And now I've tried to do this with what I think the Browns are going to do, not what I am going to do. Do I want the Cleveland Browns to draft a running back high? I absolutely do. I have concerns about the running back room for the future. Do I think the Cleveland Browns are going to draft a running back high? I do not think that is going to happen. So we will start it off here. No trades, obviously. We're just going to take the 6 picks the Browns have, and we are going to roll it out. I do believe, and you guys know, and the everydayers know, I've been going over this probably for the last 2 to 3 weeks. And the more and more I look at this roster, the biggest glaring hole that I see for a team that's about to play games in September is the tight end position. It's nothing to do with David Njoku, of course, but it has to do with what is in the rest of that room. Look, Akins brought in last year. It just did not work. We all agree. We all know it did not work. And here we are a year later, with, of course, Harrison Bryant now moved on. Ricci being brought in is a lovely story of a local kid coming back to play for his local franchise. I just don't see this room as very viable. And this late in the game in free agency, there is obviously nobody left. Darren Fells is not walking through that door. Without further ado, pick 54 for the Cleveland Browns, their first selection in the 2024 NFL Draft, Ben Sinnott, tight end, Kansas State University. Look, if you really like Brock Bowers and you understand that's a player the Browns have no chance on getting, and even still, if they did, what would you do with Brock Bowers when you already have David Njoku? Now, if I can get Brock Bowers light, which I do think Ben Sinnott is, great receiver. He's thicker, carries his weight more natural than Brock Bowers does, who had to basically juice up, water up at the combine to get himself to at that 240 number. Ben Sinnott can play tight end. He can play H-back. He has fullback experience. So even though I'm bringing him in a reserve, as a reserve tight end, a second tight end, there are plenty of things I can have Ben Sinnott not do for my franchise. If I'm the Cleveland Browns and Ben Sinnott is on the board at 54, that is my guy. Go get it done. And it's you are a David Njoku missed game away from what at the tight end position? What? 0. Absolutely 0. If you can get your hands on a player like Ben Sinnott, you go get it done. Now we go to 85, and obviously offensive line play has been a very, very popular discussion for the Cleveland Browns and what this team is trying to do as far as with a new offensive line coach in Andy Dickerson and trying to find what will be the next phase, the next core group of the Cleveland Browns offensive line. We understand that Joel Bitonio was getting older. We understand Wyatt Teller is in his 30s. Jedrick Wills on his 5th-year option. Jack Conklin all dinged up. You have DeJuan Jones, who's probably going to be a really, really nice player for you down the future. You probably have your future center on this roster. So you have 2/5 of your future offensive line. You need to start addressing that and continuing that. Kieran Amageji. It has been a very, very popular name with the connected to the Cleveland Browns. Browns have met with him in every aspect of it. Are we really going to be surprised that 2 Ivy League guys would have an interest in another Ivy League guy? Kieran Amageji probably can make it as a tackle in the NFL, could project to left guard in the NFL. He didn't get as much work during the draft process as I think a lot of people were hoping to get a lot of questions answered, whatever they had on Kieran Amageji. But you're getting an intelligent player, you're getting a committed player, and you are getting somebody for Andy Dickerson to say, this is a piece. Now, I can either find a way to work with this young man, and maybe he's my left guard of the future. Hopefully, he's my left tackle of the future. But here is a nice big ball of clay and talent, and you tell Andy Dickerson he is going to be number 3 of what is the future of the Cleveland Browns offensive line. Kieran Amageji, pick 85 to the Cleveland Browns. Now, I don't know where the interest level is for the Browns. We know how good this wide receiver class is. It's extremely deep. It kind of has a little bit of all flavors, outside big guys, straight speed guys, a lot of slots. It's amazing the amount of slot receivers that are starting to develop. You look, when you're throwing the ball 40 times a game in high school football, it makes sense that slot receivers are really, really developing and rather quickly. But for me, I think the Browns got those guys. And I think if we learned anything from the latter part of 2023 last year with the Cleveland Browns, is the outside receiver, the outside routes, the vertical game. These are the things that really propelled this offense into another level. So they were able to throw the ball all over the place. And this was out the threat of Nick Chubb. And that was a really huge difference for this team in 2023. So now you need more guys who can do things on the outside. Pick 156. It may be a stretch. Look, there's going to be a receiver or two that is available when not expected. When you have a class this deep, it ends up like a game of musical chairs where somebody's there a little bit longer than they felt they were going to be. So with that, Javon Baker, UCF, former Alabama Crimson Tide recruit, similar to Jerome Ford a few years ago. Javon Baker wins on the outside. He's got really good body control. He wins contested catches. When you want to start throwing the ball a little bit more vertically and a little bit more often vertically, contested catches are a huge part of that. A guy like Javon Baker needs to come in and needs to get it done. But I think this is a guy that can really, really help this franchise. And again, you probably think he's not ready to contribute right out the gate in year 1, which is okay. You have Jerry Jeudy. You still have Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper on expiring contracts at the moment. But you get a guy like Baker, and maybe that kind of opens up the door to what is the next phase of your wide receiver room. Javon Baker, and of course, Jerry Jeudy signed here long term. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. I appreciate everybody feeling along for the ride. Everybody, stick around. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED, headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Fans, your host, Jeff Lloyd, and of course, we appreciate all of you for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. If you are not part of the everyday crowd by now, make a new plan, stay and subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. We gave some thoughts here, obviously, on Browns' first 3 picks in this draft, 54, 85, 156. In my Browns' final mock draft, I have Ben Sinnott from Kansas State going 54. Kieran Amageji going 85 overall. Javon Baker going at 156 to the Cleveland Browns. 206, I'm going to stick offense one more time. We had Pete on the other day. He talked about his sleeper day 3 running back that he liked, McClellan out of Alabama. Me personally, I look at a player like Kendall Milton. And Kendall Milton, a running back out of Georgia, my pick here at 206, in my opinion, is being vastly, vastly underrated. His production is fantastic. Now, if you had extrapolate that to where he was, not at a school like Georgia, where they have a lot of players that have to get the rock. Otherwise, these guys are going to run for the hills and chase the NIL money somewhere else. Kendall Milton was a mainstay for Georgia, stayed there for many seasons, performed well for many seasons, over 5 yards per carry almost every year he was there. Reliable receiver. This year, tough yards, short yardage, goal line. Kendall Milton was a guy that they used there. Ideally, you're bringing this guy in, and it's going to be a tough spot here. Look, I know everybody loves what they did with Nyheim Hines. I know there's people who seem more excited about Devontae Freeman being here than me personally. And then, of course, there is Jerome Ford. I will take a Kendall Milton versus Devontae Foreman going one-on-one for a roster spot this summer, and the loser doesn't make the team. I think Kendall Milton will win that. I think Kendall Milton is a solid NFL running back. And if I can get him on day 3, and this is where it's tricky. This is where it's not good for this running back class because you don't have that headline guy that's going to go early. So then all of a sudden, everybody's saying, well, all right, maybe now I want to jump in and make sure either I get my guy or one of my guys. That's not going to happen. You're not going to have a Bijan Robinson go in the top 10. That's not going to happen this year. We're not going to hear a running back called in the first round. There might be a very good chance we don't hear a running back called in the second round. So there are going to be good running backs that slip. Not guys that are going to come in and be featured back. Not guys that all of a sudden are going to be the successor to Nick Chubb one day. No, but guys that can come in, make your roster, and give you solid NFL play. Kendall Milton, for me, is absolutely one of those guys. The more and more I go over these day 3 running backs, he's the one that pops to me. Just solid, sound, does his job. Browns like SEC guys. We've seen kind of that in the past. I think they will go that route again and bring in running back Kendall Milton, University of Georgia. 227. This is, and everybody, my buddy Jack Duffin of the OBR, well, if you draft a D tackle, that means you're choosing between Hurst and Ika. You're not choosing between Hurst and Ika. You were bringing in a rookie defensive tackle, and you're telling him and Siaki Ika, saying, I only got room for one of you. You two figure it out. And your play will dictate it. Myles Murphy, defensive tackle, University of North Carolina. His sophomore year, 4-year player at UNC, his sophomore year at North Carolina, he was probably his best year, had 4 sacks. This year, total tackles was 39, which is a really good number. It is. It's a really good number for an interior defensive lineman. With Myles Murphy, again, you guys going to come in about 6'4", 310. His relative athletic score was almost 8. So good athlete, not a great athlete by any means. But you were bringing in somebody. And look, if Siaki Ika just all of a sudden tears it up, or Siaki Ika just starts getting it and performing, and all of a sudden now Siaki Ika is not only worried about whether or not he's dressing for the games, but he's now challenging for playing time, I'll risk pick 227. I will. But the return... And look, it was a slow summer. Then he was injured. And then a lot of the other defensive tackles played well. And then there was essentially no room for Siaki Ika. And I think the other thing is normally you push a rookie into playing time. The Browns were good. The Browns were successful. If they took one of those guys off the field to make sure they got reps for their rookie, it could have cost the Browns an important game. I understand the way they handled it. But Siaki Ika, look, I'm not making selections because I got Siaki Ika on my roster. Not doing it. Sorry. I'm just not doing it. Siaki Ika and him being here does not mean that I am not going to go out and chase somebody else. Final pick here, 243. In this one, I did go a little bit off the guardrails. I'll admit it. But 5'11" and change, right around 210, 215 pounds. He'll be 24 in November. Sorry. But also, he could be a guy the Browns would have major interest in as far as an undrafted free agent. Kalen DeLoche, linebacker, Florida State University. Ran a 4.47 at the combine. For a linebacker, he ran 4.47. Box checked. As much as that age number is a negative, that 4.47, that's definitely a positive. Lots of tackles. Starter, 3-year starter at Florida State. Big interception return this year against Clemson. A lot of production, a lot of tackles. Kalen DeLoach can play in this league. It's going to be tough for the Browns, whether or not they have guys that, can be challenged at that linebacker position. We know who's going to get the majority of the reps this year. It is obviously going to be JOK. It is going to be Jordan Hicks. And the role for Devin Bush, it's going to be whatever Devin Bush can give them. If Devin Bush starts playing well early, Devin Bush will play more. And, I will, Devin Bush, me, simpatico. I am a big Devin Bush guy. But you bring in you factor in the special teams and the coverage units, which are going to be a little bit different this year, where you're going to want more athletic players. And, you're going to need, linebackers, defensive backs, wide receivers, tight ends. It's not going to be big guys out there playing. It's going to be all athletes. Kalen DeLoach right away comes in, fills the spot at his size. He's, tad bit even undersized for modern day 2024 NFL football at his weight. But with his speed at 4.47, there's nothing wrong with telling the young man to get himself to a comfortable 220. Kalen DeLoach would be my pick 243 final selection for the Browns in 2024. So my final Cleveland Browns 2024 mock draft. Pick 54, Ben Sinnott, tight end, Kansas State University. Number 85, offensive tackle, Kieran Amegeji, Yale. He's going to be a project. He's going to need some work, but there is a lot there that looks like there is a big time player. Pick 156, University of Central Florida, wide receiver Javon Baker. Pick 206, running back Kendall Milton, University of Georgia. Kendall Milton is a sleeper, and I'm going to tell you right now, Kendall Milton's going to be a player. Pick 227, Miles Murphy, defensive tackle, UNC. Should be a guy that can at least come in and challenge Ika for a roster spot. If he wins it, that's great. If he could just flat out runs the kid out of town, maybe you have a practice squad guy. And 243, his age could get him to maybe be a little bit more of a UDFA target for the Browns. But Kalen DeLoach runs, seeks, hits, tackles. Kalen DeLoach is a player. And look, when you have 3 picks from 206 on, you're just trying to find, the Browns are not going to find guys that fill every box. It's just not going to happen. We did not make any trades in this exercise. Do I think the Browns are going to make all 6 of these selections? No, they never have. Do I think the Browns would even entertain taking a player at pick 243? No, but it's a mock draft. So we play it out the way we have to play it out. So Ben Sinnott, Kieran Amegeji, Javon Baker, Kendall Milton, Miles Murphy, Kalen DeLoach, your final. Well, until Friday, when we know a little more, right? Your final Cleveland Browns mock draft from me. We're going to get to some more thoughts here to close out this episode. I appreciate you all so much. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You are feeling low, not sure your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game. Pull off some bank heist and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, final Cleveland Browns mock draft. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. Again, we always appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, you're a bunch of filthy animals, but you're my filthy animals. And I suggest you be more like the filthy animals. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. That show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. My final Cleveland Browns mock draft before things kick off Thursday night in Detroit. Ben Sinnott at 54, Kieran Amegeji at 85, Javon Baker at a 156, 206 Kendall Milton, 227 defensive tackle Miles Murphy, 243 linebacker Kalen DeLoche. I don't know what to put this or where it's truly at. But apparently there's something floating around. Solomon Wilcots, and I've actually had the opportunity to talk with Solomon a few times. Really, really good guy. Suggesting that the Cleveland Browns may be in the market for moving Greg Newsome for a second-round pick. We've talked about this many, many times. And the problem is look, nickel cornerback, third cornerback in the NFL now, that is a starting position. That player is most likely going to play 40 reps any given Sunday, Monday night, Thursday night, et cetera, et cetera. And with how it worked for Greg Newsome, and they did this last year, obviously the offseason, because once Martin Emerson burst onto the scene playing as well as he did, and it was never a knock on Greg. It's never been a knock on Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome has been a great player in his time here. Go back to his rookie year before there even was a Martin Emerson. Go to that road win in Cincinnati when Baker went in there, the Denzel Ward long touch interception return that started all that. Greg Newsome was fantastic that day. Covered T. Higgins 50 yards down the field. Greg has really gotten himself into a great, great position, in my opinion. Everybody knows Greg can play on the outside. He's learned to play really, really well on the inside. The questions about Greg's physical stature are no longer around. Greg is a tough player. Greg is a physical player, and he hasn't gotten hurt because of it. Had one of the bigger plays in all of the 2023 season last year with that interception return down in Baltimore that was able to find a way to get that Browns team to get a huge victory in Baltimore. But you look at a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, and obviously there's talks that the Philadelphia Eagles are very interested in upgrading that at the cornerback position. Philadelphia Eagles, I think, hold pick 50. It might be 50 and 53. So if that's possible, I'm not doing it. I am not, because now I have to, with one of these picks, I absolutely have to take another corner. I have no problem with Cameron Mitchell. But the thing we liked about the Browns is there was a lot of depth to that cornerback room. So basically, I'm moving Greg Newsome just to draft a younger, cheaper, hopefully, Greg Newsome. I don't think the Browns need to make the decision this year. They probably need to make the decision next offseason. And then 2 off seasons away, they'll have no choice, because it's going to be Martin, it's going to be Greg. But in the same respect, that's 2 more seasons Denzel Ward plays. So maybe in some odd way, Denzel goes to a different path in his career, and you stick with Genu and you stick with Martin Emerson. But if they're thinking about it now, and, they did have some time. They did spend some time with cornerbacks. I've talked a million times about Mississippi State cornerback to Cameron Richardson, so much so that I think we probably talked him out of possible existence for the Browns, because I think Cameron Richardson is probably going to be a guy now that's going to go top 100. 6'2", length, athleticism, track speed. That's usually not something that gets drafted on day 3. That is usually something that goes higher than that. Better overall athlete than Martin Emerson. Faster, fluid, more athlete. Martin Emerson probably got a little bit more dog to him. But then I have to find a way to draft that. So, if I did move Genu, it gives me, 2 picks right there from 50 to 55 somehow, some way. It's appealing. It is. But in the same respect, it's a mystery box. I don't know who that guy is. I don't know what that guy's going to be capable of. I know what Greg Newsome is capable of. I know Greg Newsome can make a game-defining play on the road in Baltimore against the Browns' biggest rival. That is players you need, battle-tested in a big, big scenario. So whether or not these rumors are true, because look, basically at this time, you listen to everything, but basically almost believe nothing, unless Adam Schefter reports it and talks about 2 Cincinnati Bengals players. How great was that, though? Trey Hendrickson, I want more money. I want to be traded. And then T. Higgins one more time. In case y'all forgot, I still want to be traded, or I want to get paid. And the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't know what's going on, because you had a nice run the last couple of years. That's all you keep talking to us about and telling us. AFC Championship games, played in a Super Bowl, all of this. But you still ain't got no money. You ain't paying nobody. So look, Joe Burrow is a fantastic player. And Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, it might be enough. But is that it? You're not going to find any more way to create income that you can start keeping guys around. It's tough. It's tough. So, I mean, look, all you Bengals fans that all of a sudden, I mean, and of course, the ones that were Bengal fans for about 7 seconds, this was coming. You never had a window. You got lucky. You put together a really good roster. There was no window because window meant you were going to find some way to extend a lot of it. You're not. Who's Trey Hendrickson? And you just lost your defensive tackle. So, yeah, sure. Those are 2 best players on defense. Sure, go ahead, lose those guys. Sure, no problem. Lost Jesse Bates the year before. Why? Again, had no money. Okay. Cleveland Browns, final mock draft. 54, Ben Sinnott. 85, Kieran Amageji. 156, Javon Baker. 206, Kendall Milton, running back, Georgia. 227, Miles Murphy, defensive tackle, University of North Carolina. And to close it out, pick 245, linebacker, Kalen DeLoach out of Florida State University. We will be back with you tomorrow. We will be back with you Friday multiple times. We will be back with you over the weekend multiple times. It is draft weekend. Locked On Browns was built on NFL draft coverage, and there ain't no way I'll disappoint you all this year. I appreciate everybody for being with me. Obviously, this has been an extremely difficult offseason. Things are doing so much better. I appreciate everybody who's reached out, the concern for my wife, my family, all that we've been going through. I appreciate you all. Things are looking pretty positive. My wife is getting back to her normal day-to-day life. I cannot thank you all enough. Those who've reached out, you guys are fantastic. Thank you again. I appreciate it. We are back. It is going to be a big week, and I cannot be more thankful. Make sure you continue to make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. If you are not part of the everyday crowd, just subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel and fix that right now. The show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.